Welcome to the Bible Breakdown. It's a black man and woman in America who no longer identify as believers. This show contains adult languages, themes, and isn't meant for children. As black people, we respect the history of the black church in America, but its current state is massively abusive, and we think the Bible might be part of the problem. Listen and let us know what you think. Peace. Welcome back to a very special episode of the Bible Breakdown. I'm your host, Kat.
I'm TK.
Hello, TK. Well, today we get a break. We're not even going to read the Bible today. Instead, we are going to talk about the 2024 film Conclave, starring Ralph Fiennes. It's a movie about how they get a new pope. And it turns out it's not the magical process you think it is. It's pretty much just politics.
Mm-hmm.
Spoiler. But I think over the centuries, it's always been sort of this process that was sort of shrouded in mystery. But now that we have a much more open world and we're able to, in real time, watch things happen, it's like, okay, yeah, this is just a bunch of dudes in a room. I don't think this is anything necessarily like supernatural.
Do some people believe that it is?
That the selection of the Pope is a supernatural event?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they kind of have to, right? Like, this is supposed to be God's representative on earth. Do you know who the first Pope was? Here's some trivia, Christian trivia for you.
No, Constantine. No, I don't remember.
So, according to the Catholic Church, the first Pope was Peter.
Oh, yeah, I did know that.
No, you didn't. You didn't say it. You can't be like, oh, get the answer, and then be like, oh, I did know.
No, I can do that. It was locked in my mind, and it took for you to say it for me to remember that I heard that before.
Okay, fair enough. Yeah. So the from what I understand, the Holy Father or the Pope is supposed to be basically God's conduit on earth. And that's why, he ends up being such a big deal. He's got to wear the fancy clothes, ride around in the Pope mobile, give people blessings. Me personally, I feel like most of the popes historically have just kind of overseen atrocities, but that's just my point of view.
Overseen atrocities. Interesting.
Atrocities like the Inquisition, the transatlantic slave trade, the Holocaust, and the systematic rape of children internationally.
Go
ahead.
No, I was just going to say that's where my mind went, was to the last one.
Okay.
Because of the other movie I just saw.
You mean Spotlight? Yeah. And I feel like they lightweight touched on the Catholic sex abuse scandal in Conclave, but it was just sort of like, But I don't know. I feel like it's kind of a big deal. Like, usually if you say Catholic priest, the first thing your mind goes to is like, oh, yeah, child rape.
Yeah, which is a crazy association because...
Well, it's pretty logical, actually.
I mean, I guess
it's just not the sign of a classy organization. I think Neil Brennan had a joke about that, when he talks about, like, I went to Catholic school, and the first question people ask him is like, oh, were you molested? And he was like, yeah, that's the sign of a classy organization.
I've literally never got that question.
Oh, it's probably because you're so ugly. It's like, no one wants to rape you.
I just thought it was just because I'm black. And most of the people I'm around are black. And so this is not that doesn't happen, but it's just not really something that...
For any listeners, I'm just kidding. TK is conventionally attractive. I was just making a little joke there. But yeah, Yeah, for the most. So we both went to Catholic school. So you never had anything inappropriate?
No, which I don't know. I don't
Were you
know.
insulted?
No, but it just makes learning how vast it is makes me be like, oh, how was I not exposed to that?
Well, I think, well, to be fair, they don't tend to molest everybody. A lot of times they, kind of know who they can prey upon. I was never molested by a priest, but I did have a priest tell me one time that I had nice legs. But I think he was just doing what God loves, and that's telling the truth. And then I did have a teacher while I was in Catholic school suck my finger, but he wasn't a priest.
The fuck?
Yeah.
That is wildly.
It was wildly inappropriate. I made sure I was never alone with him again. He did it in the context of a joke, but I think we can both agree now that we're adults. Like, there's no context where it's okay for us to like suck a child's finger.
No, that's. Oh my gosh.
I've never told you that story. I know it's just crazy to just say out loud. It's like, huh. And even it's funny because I think I was like 15, 16 at the time. Even
That's
then,
even worse.
I mean, what? Well, no, I wasn't saying like that was better. I was just saying I was 15, 16 at the time. I was saying even at that young age, I knew like I'm not going to say anything. This is just going to mess my life up. Like, it'll mess my life up more than it'll mess his life up.
Jeez.
Yeah. So that's usually what keeps people silent. So yeah. Anyway, but that's not what Conclave is about. Con in
I mean, this movie is essentially the existing pope or the current pope had passed away, and now they have to go through the process of finding a new pope. And in the midst of that, all of the candidates who could be pope also have a reason why they shouldn't be pope, and so that's kind of the movie is weeding all of these people out.
And I think we we gonna do spoilers? Because there is a twist.
Yeah, we can do spoilers. This
We'll
is
save it
not a
for the
real
end,
review
though.
show. Yeah.
Yeah, like I'll put in the notes when the spoilers start. But it takes place, does it give it like the year? I feel like it's kind of in current time. Like, this is 2024. Yeah, it's supposed to be present day. So they're not using the actual, who's Pope right now? Pope Francis? Is that who's Pope now?
We should know these things.
I know, right? No, we shouldn't. We're not Catholics. I think the Pope in the movie wasn't Pope Francis. Oh, look at me go. So, yeah,
before him was Pope Benedict, right?
And that was kind of unprecedented because I think he was maybe one of the only, I don't know if he's the only Pope, but he's one of the very few popes who stepped down and didn't just die and lose the position. And I think it's because he was linked to covering up some sexual abuse scandals. He was also a part of the Nazi Youth Party.
That is so crazy because I remember when Pope Benedict got elected. I don't remember when Pope Francis did because I would think I was probably out of school by then. But
yeah,
it was a big thing at Catholic school when Pope Benedict got elected because they had it all on the TVs and it was just like an exciting moment. It's like Catholic people's Super Bowl.
Pretty much. Yeah, this is the big leagues. Like he's just basically like just the celebrity. Like, for a long time, like he was like the biggest celebrity in the world. I know you're probably way too young to remember the episode of Saturday Night Live when Sinead O'Connor like ripped a picture. I think it was Pope John Paul II on stage.
Whoa. Oh man.
Oh, I'll
What?
have to include that in the notes. Oh, yeah, it was like a big deal. So you know who Sinead O'Connor is?
The singer?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, and she's, Irish. And for people who don't
Well,
know,
that's
the
like one of the
Catholic,
first things that popped up.
yeah. She well, for people who don't know, the Catholics really did a number on Ireland. And she was just basically protesting. I mean, there's so many things to protest other than just branding and reputation. There's not a lot of good things that the Catholic Church has done. Like I named the atrocities before, like the Inquisition and the overseeing the Holocaust, being involved in the transatlantic slave trade, and then of course the mass abuse of sexual abuse of children. They've never done anything so good that it cancels that stuff out.
No, they have not. I'm sorry. I was going down the rabbit hole of this Sinead O'Connor thing. Yeah, this was
Yeah.
1992, so I know there was
Yeah.
probably was hella backlash.
Oh yeah, it was crazy. Like I think the next episode of SNL, Joe Pesci hosted, and he's super Catholic, so
Yeah,
like he brought like a taped together picture of the Pope or whatever. It
that's
was
actually
just
pretty fucking funny. But
yeah, but now everyone's looking back. They're like, oh, we might have been a little too mean to Sinead O'Connor. It's like, oh, you think? It's like, yeah, like because her career kind of suffered after that a
yeah,
little
I
bit.
bet that is career ruining shit in 1992. That's
But
like
I
that's
mean,
that's
I
like
mean that's like Kaepernick kneeling at the
well, I wasn't gonna use him. I was gonna use somebody from that same time period.
Okay, go
Uh,
ahead.
that's like damn, Abdul Rahim from basketball, who also didn't kneel at the time, and this is the '90s, so the NBA wasn't playing that shit.
Wait, he did kneel or didn't
He
kneel?
didn't. Hold on.
You
Sharif
don't
Abdul.
kneel for the Are you talking about for the Star Spangled Banner? He didn't
He
stand for
he
it?
didn't stand. I'm sorry. That's it.
Okay, yeah, I was about to say, like, yeah.
No, it wasn't Abdul Rahim. Damn it. Hold
Okay.
on.
I was
Fact
say
check
I
coming.
don't
Uh Mahmoud Abdul Rauf.
Okay. Sounds Muslim.
He was. I don't think he was born Muslim, but yes.
Okay.
Um, which is crazy because he was like the prototype to Steph Curry, but that
Oh,
kind of
okay.
fucked up his career because he didn't
No
stand.
doubt. Yeah, you gotta listen.
David
Nobody
Stern
I'm
wasn't doing
assuming
that
I'm assuming
shit.
he's black too.
Oh yeah, yeah,
Yeah. America does not like an uppity Negro.
yeah. That was yeah. So Chris Wayne Jackson, it was his
I mean, that's very
3 months.
similar too to Muhammad Ali, like refusing to go to Vietnam and,
I think when
having his
Muhammad Ali's is different though because
well, I was gonna finish what he did just in case people
yeah,
didn't know. Refusing to be drafted for the Vietnam War, and so they took away his boxing license, and he kind of lost out on some of his prime years for
which is
his
also kind
protest.
of bullshit. Like, what the fuck?
Well,
Like,
the Vietnam
why
War
is
was
I mean,
bullshit. America
okay,
was on some bullshit.
no, for sure. And Apocalypse Now is kind of about that. Sidebar, I watched that over the weekend,
Yeah.
but for the first time. But anyway, no, with the Muhammad Ali's, I just never understood that because, granted, I don't. Yeah, I'm just gonna say he was a fucking celebrity. Why the fuck are you sending him over there? And granted, from what I heard,
Well,
like
I
he wouldn't have been
mean,
on the fighting lines. He probably just would have
yeah,
been a
it would
fucking
have been
cook.
like when Elvis like joined. You know what I mean? Like that was the thing. It was supposed to just be kind of propaganda for like, look at what these great Americans are, these celebrities are even down with the cause. And Muhammad was like, I don't know, I'm pretty sure no Vietnamese ever called me a nigger, so I'm gonna
I
sit this one out.
feel like they have, but that's neither here nor there.
I mean, maybe, but not to the extent that the people. I don't know.
They
Like
didn't systematically oppress you.
right. Like basically the people who are, oppressing the Vietnamese are trying to get like an oppressed population to go over there and do the oppressing for them. It's like, yeah. And it's also just historically the contributions of black soldiers has been kind of like erased from American history, or really history in general. A lot of I feel like it's in World War One or two. Like there were some African soldiers that were helping the French, and they killed them instead of paying them.
This pissed me off.
Yeah, it's not great.
Well,
So
speaking of, to sidebar that, because there was some
okay.
backlash of the movie that's out on Apple TV called Blitz, I guess, and it's like, and there was a
Bleed
lot of
Streak.
backlash about this woke culture, which also, sorry, sidebar to the sidebar. Stop. It annoys me when right-wing media uses woke
As a
because
pejorative.
they're using it fucking wrong.
Yeah, of course.
But anyway, the
Yeah, like we're
backlash was,
supposed to stay woke. Like that's the whole thing.
yes,
Like they took this phrase about how, just for people who don't know, because people who might be listening might not be familiar with it, but like I feel like stay woke has been a phrase in Black communities for decades. And now, and it just means don't let these white people fool you into thinking stuff is cool. Like stay woke. And now the idea that that's supposed to be a negative thing, where it's like, oh, everyone's just too woke. It's like my whole thing is every time I hear that, I'm like, well, go to sleep, ho. If you're tired, be quiet and go to sleep, ho. Because and that's just a fun song. It's a rap song, but
yeah.
that it just plays in my head whenever I hear like this pushback against wokeness. It's like, yeah, I guess people who aren't woke are a lot easier to um take advantage of and oppress, and I would say, like, we're super woke over here at the Bible Breakdown. It's probably why we're not very popular.
Speak for yourself.
I'm talking about the podcast. Like, we're not exactly Joe Rogan over here.
Well, okay. So anyway, the point I was gonna make was, yeah, just Black people in this World War II era. Apparently, people just don't believe that there were Black people that existed in, Europe before World War II, which is crazy.
Europe's closer to Africa than the United States. Like, they're they're connected by it's just so crazy to me. Like it's not crazy, it's very intentional. Like a lot of what we're calling the Western white world is intentionally segregated, and the term minorities is used for anyone with dark skin, so they really feel like they're most of the planet. So when they see like Black and brown people, they feel like that's being like pushed on them instead of it just actually being the natural order of things. Like most people are melanated.
Yes.
So yeah, because it's actually sort of
They
it's
discussed none of this in Conclave, by the way.
Oh, well, actually there was a racial element in Conclave.
Yeah, because they didn't want
because you know what, there's
best
never
movie
been a Black
reviewers.
Pope.
Yeah. Well,
And
it hasn't been publicized, but I feel like I was watching something where it's been theorized that there actually were Black popes, but it just I was in the modern era, there has not been one.
of course not. And also, I have to bring this up every single time just so people can kind of know my perspective on thing. I don't think whiteness really exists. Like people come in different colors, but there's no like rarefied spectrum, like air of people who are white. Like you're just a different color. You're still a person. Like it's not a separate, like race doesn't exist. There are human beings that come in different colors. And the idea of that there are races based on color is just something that sprang out of eugenics, which is a pseudoscience. So just as we don't use eugenics anymore, but we're still using terms from it, to me is very problematic. So having said that, because it was kind of funny to me, the United Healthcare shooter, Luigi Mangione, he was described by one, I can't remember which media outlet, as a light-skinned man. They wouldn't even give him whiteness. And I was like, ooh, the Italians are going to lose their white card, because Italians haven't always been white because it's super close to Africa. Like if you look at a map, Italians can tend to be a little darker. I think that was even in um I forget which was it. I can't remember what the movie was. It was Lawrence Fishburne, and he was playing Bumpy Johnson. And I feel like Andy Garcia was in it. He was playing a gangster.
Hoodlum.
Hoodlum. Yeah. And I forget which one of the other gangsters was like, yeah, Italians, they're practically niggers, like because they tend to be a little darker. It's Mediterranean, whatever, whatever. But because the way whiteness works, they have to keep this illusion of majority. So they have to keep adding people so that they can keep their numbers up. So they're like, okay, Irish, Italians, you guys can be white now.
I mean, they're always white to me, but
well, that's what I'm saying. Like, but if it had been like the 1930s or 40s, you wouldn't have considered them white. Like, because it's a legal status. Like, they wouldn't have gotten that little W on their
well,
birth
that changed
certificate.
because of I can't
They needed
remember
to
what
get the
I was.
numbers up.
Well, yes, I guess that would have been the real reason, but
Because it's just
also,
like Hispanics can be white now. You ever see that on the forum? Hispanic white, Hispanic non-white.
oh, I've never seen. That's fucking crazy.
You don't see that on forums? I see that on maybe I fill out more paperwork than you. I see that on forums all the time where there's Hispanic white, Hispanic non-white. Yeah.
That's just disgusting. I don't
It
even know
is
what
pretty
to say
gross.
to that. Like what?
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't like the self-hate. That actually very much annoys me. And as
Yeah.
somebody who, as a child, wanted to be white and then grew out of that shit, I do not like that at all. Like it is. I don't. I'm just not. I don't know. I don't. What have white people contributed? I think we should have an honest
Again, I
conversation.
think
Other than like,
they've contributed the concept of whiteness. Like that's the
yeah,
whole thing. I don't like breaking it down into like, oh, well, there's white people. And because for one, I think human brains like a binary where there's white and black. But the reality of the situation is most people don't comfortably fall into either one of those categories. As a matter of fact, you and I, in most places on the planet, would not be considered black. We'd be some kind of halvesies or colored. Like that's the thing where, and I mean, we can, the fact that the black people who are the enslaved Africans who were brought over to the United States were intentionally diluted down and lightened up to, be more acceptable through a series of, systematic sexual abuse. But anyway, like I said, but I bring this up because the Catholic Church did play a role in that. Like there really, if you think about the transatlantic slave trade, nothing was happening in Europe without the Catholic Church's blessing until Henry VIII decided that he didn't want to be Catholic anymore because he wanted a divorce. So, but yeah, all of that, sort of quote unquote age of exploration, that was very much, even the doctrine of discovery that came out of the Vatican, this idea that you're allowed to go into any country. And as long as you're spreading the gospel, you can do whatever you want to them people.
us not being Catholic or Christian, I just feel like I'm living in a different world
Anymore
than other people. Like I feel like it's
yeah
I've
you're talking about
taken
perspective earlier.
I've taken the red pill, and man.
Okay, well let's do a breakdown real quick since we're technically supposed to be talking about Conclave.
Yeah.
Do you want to break down the plot, or do you want me to break down the
I kind
plot?
of feel like I said it.
Well, just to get color it a little bit more because
Okay.
Ray Fiennes' character, what was his name? Was it Clarence, brother Cardinal Clarence or something like that?
Checking. Um, yes, I feel like it was that though.
Yeah.
Thomas Carden. What the heck is this saying? Come on. Um, Thomas. It was Thomas.
Oh, okay, Cardinal Thomas.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so he's Cardinal Thomas, and he's basically, in Rome. I guess, was he an American priest? He didn't have an Italian accent. Was he supposed to be playing an American priest?
Uh, yeah. Well, I mean, technically, he's not American, but sure.
I'm talking about in the movie. We're just giving the plot breakdown for the
I
movie.
just thought he was just playing whatever his actual country of origin is.
Where's he from? Is he Irish?
No, he's English.
Oh, he's British.
Yeah.
Okay. Anyway, Ray finds he's in the Vatican. He's one of the he's in charge of the clergy of the some. I don't know. He's in charge of basically kind of running the new conclave because the Pope died unexpectedly.
That's literally what he's in charge of, is the conclave.
The conclave. So he's calling everybody in. Everybody's coming in to all these cardinals, and then there's kind of a mystery cardinal that's there. What's his name?
His name was Cardinal Vincent, played by Carlos Diaz.
Thank you. Cardinal Vincent comes in, and people are like, wait, he's the Cardinal of Kabul, which is shocking because Kabul is famously in Afghanistan and, kind of Muslim. But they were just saying, like, for safety reasons, they kept the Pope who died kept it secret. But he had some paperwork that said, he was really Cardinal. So he's like, hey, I'm going to let him be in it. So fine. So there's all this sort of infighting and political, muckety muck going on. People trying to act like it's like, oh, I couldn't even Ray fight, Cardinal Thomas is like, oh, I couldn't possibly, don't vote for me. But deep in his heart, he wanted it. Like, that's the whole
point. I don't think he wanted it.
I do.
I had a what was that?
We'll get to that part. We can discuss that. But because I think we did disagree on that point. I personally feel like he had that ambition. But that's the beauty of art. It's up for interpretation. And so, there's
your interpretation is wrong.
And so there is an African cardinal there who
Cardinal Joshua.
Thank you. And so he was kind of, getting a little steam or whatever, but one of the other cardinals kind of set him up. Because he had a child out of wedlock with one of the nuns. And so somebody had shipped in one of the nuns he had knocked up like 20 years back or whatever to throw him off his game. So he got him out the game. Isabella Rossellini was also in the movie playing, what was her character? Sister Agnes. She did a great job. They also showed it, and didn't tell just how much lower women are in the patriarchal organization that is the Catholic Church. Like, women are not allowed to be in charge. That is a big, heavy rule. I make the joke a lot of times that the Vatican is the biggest bros before hoes club in the world. Like, they do not. They're like, the women can run the women and they can be in charge of that, but they can never have any authority over a man. Like, they take that very, very seriously. And I think that probably is why there's so much raping going on. Oh, because did you ever get a chance to watch Doubt?
No, not yet.
Well, everybody, if you can hear my voice, if a man has ears, let him hear. Go watch Doubt. They really sort of do a good job of honing in on how blocking women out of any leadership is a big part of the reason why there's just so much rape. Because that's the other thing too, like, the child rape gets a lot of attention, and it should, but also there's just a lot of regular rape too of adults. Like, sexual abuse is very rampant because they don't have a, healthy view of human sexuality. And I think that's why people kind of act out. Anyway, so you got all this, because I feel like Conclave, to me, had the mechanics of a play. Even though it's a film, it's a movie, but to me, it's dialogue heavy, it's character heavy and driven. There's not a lot of different, it's all taking place within a couple days in one location. But it was still very powerful. So in the end, they keep, because for people who don't know how they vote, like, it's the Vatican kind of came out of like the Roman Empire. So democracy is a heavy theme. And so they have to keep voting until, I don't think it has to be unanimous, but they do have to get like a certain majority of the cardinals votes before they're like, okay, this is who God wants us to pick as the Pope. So they keep kind of like campaigning, revoting. There's a lot of even though it's supposed to be, everybody's supposed to be like one body, everyone still is a little clannish depending on what country they're from. Like I said, yeah, yeah, yeah. And then so in the end, it looks like um Cardinal Thomas starts getting more and more votes. So as it looks like he might actually win it, he's one of the other priests asked Cardinals ask him, he's like, well, if you win, what do you want your name to be? And he had he's like, I want it to be I don't know, I forget what he said, but he had a name at the ready or whatever. But here's the other thing. So when he's about to write in his own name, when they're doing the voting, there's this explosion. So there was a terrorist attack right outside the Vatican where they were doing the voting and stuff. You never know exactly. They don't tell you exactly who was behind it, but you get the impression it was Islamic terrorism, because one of the other cardinals called them animals, and they start doing all this fighting. And then, okay, now we're going into spoiler territory. Then who was the cardinal from Kabul? What was his name? Vincent. Cardinal Vincent stands up. He gives this really impassioned speech about how we can either divide up amongst ourselves and fall into revenge and hate, or we can do what we're supposed to be doing as priests and be a beacon of Christ's love. So that speech gets everybody to vote for him. So he ends up being officially the elected pope or whatever. And so after that, Cardinal Thomas is like, yeah, I was kind of tripping. I was letting my ambition get to me a little bit. And so he goes and sits down with them, and he's like, hey, Vince is like, here's the thing about me, because
he never said that. He was kind of tripping and he was letting his ambition
once again, this is just context. This is why the acting, you show, you don't tell. So I think that's just what I took from that was my interpretation. And then but while all this is going on, Cardinal Thomas is also having everybody investigated to see if like they had any dirt or whatever. And so something does come up about Cardinal Vincent after he's elected, and it turns out I guess the best way of saying it is like he's non-binary. Like he was on his way to get a surgery to have like basically a hysterectomy, because he had both sexual organs, but then after talking to the old pope who died, he decided like, I'm just going to stay the way God made me. So it's kind of like this is damn near the first ever female pope, and that's kind of where we leave off.
Which is crazy.
Well, what's crazy about it?
I think it's just crazy in the sense of, if that was to be found out, then it would be some type of huge storyline within that universe. So, yeah.
Well, because here's the thing, like once you're pope, you're just pope. You're supposed to be pope until you die, unless you're, Pope Benedict or whatever. But I don't know, this idea that
it's crazy because a lot of people are miseducated about what things mean. For instance, somebody called me the other day who was saying that they found out their ex, they suspect that their ex likes trans women, but that person was also fucking her. And so she kept saying, well, he's gay. And I was like, well, I don't know if I don't know if he's gay. I don't think that's the proper term. And she was like, if you like fucking men, you're gay. And I was
trans women aren't men.
Yeah. See, so like these is where words mean things. So
Yeah.
in the
And
context,
the fact that there's not a strict binary. Like it's kind of like when I was talking about the black and white stuff, like there's no real strict binary as to, this sort of colorism we're trying to do. In the same way, there's not really a strict binary when it comes to sex either. Like there can be intersections. And
that's actually the term they use for Cardinal Vincent. He said he was classified as
and
intersex.
okay, yeah. And I think that flipping out about it doesn't really help. Like, and also judging people for who they like sexually. I mean, as long as it's consensual adults. Like, I don't think there's any reason for judging that. Like, I think,
That is fucking super heavy, man.
what?
Judging people for who they like. I have people in my life who question even if you just show kindness to like a gay person or a trans person or something, like they feel like, why are you even doing that? Like, are you somehow now not a heterosexual person? Like it's amazing to me where people's minds go.
It is because it ends up being sort of this moral judgment on people who are in any way queer or go outside the lines of cis heteronormative societal behavior, which once again isn't even, I don't know. Like I said, it's something we're groomed into. Because to me, that's something that's always a funny word because people are always talking about how the gays and the trans are like trying to groom the children. But it's like in real life, the grooming is done by organizations like the Catholic Church. Like this idea that, hey, you should tell this adult, like encouraging children. Because when do you start doing confession?
I don't know. The first time I went to confession was probably like third grade, maybe.
I feel like you go through confirmation first and then you start doing
I
confession.
didn't do the shit in the orders.
Okay, fair. Okay, let's just say like we're actually doing like the
Because I feel
catechisms
like
and
because I got baptized before I got confirmed. Is that not how it works? I didn't
yeah.
get confirmed actually.
See, okay, so really you're not, like, I think in order of like the sacraments or whatever, like, baptism is first, and a lot of times because Catholics are famous for christening, like they do the baptism when you're still a baby
Do they
and
make you
stuff
pay
like
for that? Do they make you pay to
what.
get baptized?
TK, it's pimping all day. Are you kidding me? Like, unless
That's
I'm
why.
getting paid.
No, because now it makes more sense why I didn't finish it, because yeah, my mom just didn't have that money.
Well, I mean, I don't know how they end up getting the money direct because, like I said, I was never confirmed either. But I feel like that's what happens in like eighth grade is usually when confirmation, because I feel like third grade is when you
Mm.
do first communion. It's either second or third grade is first communion, because I think it goes, yeah, you do baptism, first communion, confirmation, whatever. However it ends up happening, I remember when I was in high school, it would be fairly common for priests to come in and they'd kind of just like have a day where you do confession. And so basically, you're encouraged to tell this, adult stranger about your quote unquote sins, keeping in mind that you're told that masturbation is a sin, sex is a sin. Like, to me, that isn't something I would encourage my children to do. Like, talk about your sexual thoughts with an adult that you
An
may or may
adult
not know.
stranger, possibly.
Well, I
Yeah,
said that you may or
yeah,
may not know.
yeah,
Some
yeah.
people do know their priests. It's almost a little weirder when you do know them because here's the
Yes.
thing. Like, if you do something like, I know people who do feel better after confession because it's almost like therapy. It's like talking, but
Let's go
priests
to
aren't
therapy.
therapists. And very often, like, depending on what they're into, this could be getting them off. So, like, to me, that is a type of grooming where you're told that, yeah, it's perfectly normal for a child to sit down alone with an adult and tell them about possibly sexual thoughts or actions that they're having. Or as opposed to, like I said, just being kind to or accepting the fact that people are um like they're the spectrum from gay to straight isn't a strict binary. Like there are going to be all types of attractions people have. Like you're it's never explained, like it's just sex education, which also, the Catholic Church and a lot of religious organizations push back against because they call it grooming, but it's like, no, it's just education. Just teaching kids about their bodies and the fact that they are more than likely going to feel sexual desire. That's not the same as like, ooh, like actually getting off. Like with a, like it's not, that's not grooming, it's just education. But ooh, I really do. That's one of the things I don't like about the modern church is just how hostile they are towards human sexuality.
Yeah, that's been one of my biggest pet peeves is the demonization of sex.
Yeah, because it's I don't know. If you don't hear it from anybody else, let Kat and TK tell you there's nothing wrong with being sexual and wanting to have sex. That doesn't make you a sinner. Like,
Sexual whore.
you fucking whore, you prostitution whore. Like,
Yeah.
no, like but I think that can cause real psychological damage. I think I mean, for the long, I've, it was so crazy when I said it out loud when I realized this. I had a baby before I had an orgasm because I was so afraid of masturbation. But at the same time, like, I wanted a boyfriend, I wanted to be with someone, so I'm having sex, but I don't even know how to enjoy sex because I've never explored my own body because I've been so afraid to because I was told it was a sin. Like, have you ever been told, like, basically, like, if you masturbate, like, your
Yeah.
relatives are in heaven looking down on you and, like, judging you?
That's fucking crazy. But yes.
Yeah. Yeah. And so once you figure out that that's literally crazy and you're just like, "Oh, my body belongs to me. I can do what I want to with it. I'm not hurting anybody by exploring my body and actually having pleasure." And then but then there's all these people who still try to make you feel bad about me. Like I had an ex who still would not admit to masturbating because he said it was gay.
How do you even
Of course he masturbated. Like like I would see, like it
how do
was.
you even conflate the two, though?
And my whole other thing is like, and even if it was gay, which it's not, there's nothing wrong with being gay. Like if like I don't know.
There's nothing wrong with being gay.
You know what there is something wrong with? Having sex with underage girls or people. I shouldn't just say girls. Like having sex with, if you're an adult and like that's bad. But like if you're just exploring your own body. So like what like let's just say I'm trying to think for myself if I'd been sexually assaulted, well, I was sexually assaulted 20 years ago, like now would I want that person to go to jail? I don't know if I would. I would mostly want like an apology and sort of like you to
That's
understand
what they
like
said
why it was wrong.
in Spotlight. Like, because we brought that up movie up briefly, is that a lot of the people who have been abused by the priest, they just want some acknowledgement of what was done. It's not necessarily that they are seeking like a financial incentive.
So here's my reasons for thinking Cardinal Thomas secretly had the ambition to want to be pope. For one, I think every priest wants to be pope, just about. Like if you make it into the Vatican, like maybe not the priests who are like really doing the community work, like the monks and stuff like that, but like the dudes who dress up in them little like outfits and wear all that jewelry and stuff like that, they're into it. And like to me, it's about power, and that's the ultimate ring of power. So even if you act like you don't want it, there's a part of you that wants it. Just the fact that he was even willing to vote for himself to me indicates like he really wanted that shit.
I disagree because I feel like maybe it might have started off like that, but I think once you get to a certain level, it's like, oh no, I'm very much okay not being number one. Cause I mean, Tony said it best, like in Sopranos, like, you know, being number one is like you got to take the hits. So,
Okay, but I'm talking about Cardinal Thomas
well, I
though.
think it's the same
So why do you
mindset,
think he
and
voted for himself?
because I think at that point in the story, it was just like, motherfuckers keep voting for me. I'm telling them not to vote for me. And that's another thing we didn't talk about. He actively was like petitioning people to not vote for him. He's telling them, please don't vote for me. Don't vote for me. And he just vehemently like was against that the entire film. So I'm not buying that, like, oh, he maybe on like, yeah, it probably crossed his mind, but I don't think he really wanted it. He's seen how much pressure and how much bullshit that like all of them go through. That seems like, honestly, though, I will say this. I thought that's what was about to happen with the movie, and I thought that would have been an interesting ending as well, because I feel like he didn't want it so much. And prior to the movie, he wants to leave the Vatican altogether. He's having a struggle with his faith. And so
Oh,
for
right.
him to become Pope, I feel like that would have been a special kind of hell for him.
But my suspicion is every pope knows this is bullshit. Like, I think it's very
That's evident throughout
difficult.
the movie, because
Yeah, like I
when he
think
said
everyone
that
who
to
gets to
Stanley
this
Tucci,
echelon of power, I think it's very difficult to. One of my, I don't know how many people are familiar with the Clergy Project, but it's an online
mm,
community for pastors who've lost their faith, but they basically have to stay in the church because it's the only home they know. Basically they don't have any other skills and they don't want to lose their communities. But I feel like a lot of people who are in high positions in the church, they very much know that this is a game they're running, but I think they tell themselves that the benefits are worth the um deception.
it's disgusting behavior. To me, it's up there with, maybe not, it's right under the healthcare shit, to go back to Luigi Manganiello. I just feel like it's right up there with that. You're just taking advantage of these vulnerable people, and you're crippling them financially, mentally, spiritually. Like I don't like leech shit. It makes me
Yeah.
feel disgusting.
So I think the Cardinal Vicente is supposed to be or was it Vincent or Vicente? I can't remember.
Who?
The intersex cardinal, the cardinal
Was
from the
Vincent?
Vincent. Okay. So Cardinal Vincent is supposed to be sort of this balance. Like to me it makes it's kind of perfect in a way because they won't allow for any female leadership. You're missing that aspect because I think as human beings we all have a feminine and masculine nature, and to put so much emphasis on that only the masculine like part of our nature should have any power is a mistake. I think we need both of our natures. I think male and female leadership, and to that extent intersex, like all of these representations of humanity need to be in positions of leadership. But because, as we've discussed, when we read the Bible, the framework is that this Old Testament God is male, and he only wants his reputations on earth to be male. there's no space for the feminine part of our nature, which is a balancing force. And I think that's why we get so heavily into violence when it comes to religion and ultimately abuse.
I feel like all of this is taking. I don't know, man. I don't even know. I'm just exhausted with religion, to be honest with you. Like it's
Well, sure, it's exhausting, and I think it's meant to be in a way. Like it's meant to I mean, a big part of it is for you to break down your own identity and take on, the identity the church wants you to have, which is whatever they say. So if they say abortion is bad, you think abortion is bad. If they say IVF is bad, you think IVF is bad. If they say being gay is bad, you think being gay is bad, instead of taking a step back and being like, wait, what does it take for something to be bad? You know what I mean? But then they're just be kind of like, oh, well, everyone diddles kids every once in a while. That's no big deal. Like
this is why
instead
I like
of,
a movie like Heretic because it challenged.
oh, yeah. So I didn't sit and watch it because I didn't really want to do a horror film. I was in the mood for it, but I went ahead and like watched the breakdown and stuff like that. And it was basically just the theme of, yeah, because they were talking more about Mormonism, but it's just this idea that religion is there to control you. And that at the end of the day, people like being controlled because freedom is a burden.
And I left feeling like, yeah, no, religion control is the real religion.
Yeah. It's when you study like the history of human beings and the religions they've developed, it's interesting to me that the spiritualities I've been mostly attracted to have been sort of ATRs, like African traditional religions, and Native American traditions, which when the Catholic Church was doing their part in colonization, it was demonizing all of those things and basically calling them witchcraft. And then just this idea, and then that's kind of how they stigmatized women, because any women seeking power or knowledge, they're a witch, and we should probably set her on fire just to be safe.
Which is
Speaking of,
crazy because I feel like I've heard stories where back in the day, men would have sex with these women, and if you get caught, they would be like, "Oh, she possessed me. She's a witch," and they would fucking
yeah,
kill her. That's fucking.
yeah,
That is so evil.
it's super duper evil. Yes, it is. Where it's like, yes, she put a spell on me. I wasn't in control of my senses. Now we have to set her on fire. Very similar. I just watched Wicked last week. Boy, was that good. Very much
I haven't seen
a,
it.
huh?
Have not seen it.
Oh, I recommend it. 5 stars, good holiday fun. And just I mean, I don't want to spoil it, but a part of it is just demonizing a woman and like being like, hey, she's your enemy, not me. I'm great. And it's I don't know, it's just so frustrating because it just works over and over again. I keep thinking about how when Kamala was running and everything that was being hurled at her, like she couldn't do wrong right. Like it was just like this idea that I would hear from people who were, MAGA, that she was mentally incompetent, that she slept her way to the top. And I'm like, so you would prefer Donald Trump, who, once again, not only has credible sexual assault allegations, has been found liable in civil
Yes.
court for
Yes.
sexual assault.
Yes. They were.
And I believe fully that he had raped his first wife, because, that was one of the things she alleged in their divorce. I'm inclined to believe her. People who always want to be like, oh, she's just lying. She just lying. She just want money. She just want attention. That is such a rare occurrence. Like, I'm not saying it never happens, but it's so rare as to not really needing to be mentioned. It's like when your cancer goes automatically into remission. Yeah, that happens sometimes, but I really wouldn't count on that. Like, it's for the most part, if someone is willing, because most people are fine just going, like, taking that secret to their grave. that they were sexually assaulted. It's not the kind of thing people want to talk about, which is why I don't think it should have a statute of limitations. People are like, no,
They
where
talk
they
about
just
that in
bring,
Spotlight too. Like most people
yeah,
don't
they're like,
even,
why
they feel
should,
embarrassed by this.
exactly. It's not the kind of thing you want to bring up. And because for one, first thing people are like, what did you do? Were you being all slutty? Like, what were, what,
That's the
you
part
know,
that disgusts me. I don't like victim blaming. Like if
I don't
somebody
like it
comes to,
either.
and that actually is a character trait that turns me off in people when they like, well, so what did you, or not so much what did you do, but the one that always gets me is like, well, what was she wearing?
Yeah.
Like, what the fuck difference does it make?
And I mean, you think about societies where, people barely wear clothes and they manage to not rape each other. I mean, I've been on nude beaches and people manage to not rape. You know what I mean? Like this idea that it's insulting to men that somehow they're just so unable to control themselves that we have to, you know, not show any parts of our flesh, at least they jump on us. It's like, no, like just have some civilization about yourself.
Yeah.
But yeah, this idea that yeah, that people are just lying on other people just to get them in trouble. I'm not saying that never happens, but what is far more common is that a sexual assault actually happened. It's all far too common in our society, and it's always just sort of, what, he's gonna rape a little, what are you gonna do? Or what, with even with Donald Trump, like with his first wife Ivana, I was so young when it was going on, but I do remember the conversation around it because people were debating whether or not you can rape your wife, like if that's even possible. And it's
That
like,
is a
I remember,
wild
isn't that, yeah, like is spousal
fucking
rape,
thing.
they're trying to say legally it's an oxymoron that you can't legally rape your spouse. That's technically like your property,
Yeah.
kind of like in the same way you can't rape your slaves because that's your property. But it's kind of like, no, any unwanted, like, and the myth that sexual assault comes from a stranger, it's like, no, like most of the time, and that's almost every crime. Most crimes are, it's the crime is coming from somebody, like you're more likely to be murdered by somebody, you know. The reason why stories like the Central Park shooter get so much traction is because it is an anomaly. They're like, whoa, that's crazy. He just ran up on him and shot him in broad daylight.
Like,
Most
the
of the people
Central
who
Park
got
shooter.
killed yeah, most of the people who got
Who the
shot
fuck
that
is
day were
that?
Luigi.
Is that what they're calling? I thought they were calling him the Copay killer.
I mean, he had a lot of names. This was a big deal. But like, yeah, before they caught him, he was just the Central Park shooter. Whatever. A
It
lot
didn't
of
even
people got
happen
shot.
in Central Park, though.
Whatever. It's like he ran through it. It doesn't
I'm
have to
sorry.
be
I'm about
accurate.
accuracy. Like that,
I'm
it
sorry.
did
Well, it
not
doesn't
occur
matter
that
anymore.
day.
Now we know his name. It's Luigi. But I'm just saying
Also,
that day,
we
a
should
lot of
just
people
talk.
got a
Yes, that
lot
day a lot of people got shot.
a lot of people got shot, and most of those people were shot by people they know. Like it's just that story got the most traction because the guy was rich and the person who shot him, he didn't know him. That's
Can
an
we just talk
exciting
about the
story.
bitch assness of the McDonald's employee who
Well, you
fucking
know what? She got I mean, and the fact that she's
nothing.
not
She
given
got
a
nothing.
reward.
She got
I'm like,
nothing.
wow. I'm like, wow. I'm like, I almost feel sorry for her because I'm assuming she's probably simple. You know what I mean? Like, because I couldn't even write this. Like, if this was a story, if we were trying to do a screenplay, like, it just seems unimaginably cruel that, and it just plays so
That
perfectly
always
into,
happens though. The
of
fucking
course, it plays into the insurance company narrative where you're being denied on a technicality or a pre-existing condition, which is insane. It's like, yeah, that's just called my medical history. What are you talking about? Like, I really do hope that the vitriol around this doesn't die down so that we can get rid of, like you said, these parasites, because we don't need these insurance companies. Most countries run their insurance just fine without it being for profit. The idea that someone needs to make money off of my disease is gross.
yeah. fucking I just feel like a crazy person when I talk about this type of shit. Like it seems like this is all very simple shit.
And we can look back and go into the historic, like in history, to see when it happened, because in America our medical, like our health industry hasn't always been for profit. Ronald Reagan did that. Like, it was this idea that privatizing stuff makes it better and more efficient. That's not always true. And even when it is, it's only because there's also a public option that helps to subsidize it, i.e.,
that part. We
right.
should have both.
Yes, very much like how we have the US Postal Service and we have FedEx and UPS. Like, I'm glad that we have both. Like, I wouldn't just want the post office. I'm glad FedEx and UPS are an option if I want to pay more, but I still like having the post office. And then it's the same thing with schools. Like, we should and keep in mind, Trump, one of his things he's trying to do is get rid of the Department of Education, which would get rid of public schools. So it's like, yeah, like having
you would
public
have to pay to go to
schools.
school or just not go to school.
I don't know what their plan is. I don't think they really have one. Like, it's just this idea of, yeah, basically everything just needs to be for profit. So like, yeah, you would have to pay, or I don't know how. I honestly don't know because it's so insane. But yeah, there's all these different avenues that or like libraries, like the fact that we have public libraries and we also still have bookstores, and like you can order books from Amazon. Like, but if you need to use the public library, that's available too. So it's the same thing with medicine. Like, because in other countries where they have universal health care, there's the public option, and you can also buy private insurance to supplement it if you want to. Like, it just, like, that just makes more sense than everything. Someone needs to but that's how America is. Like, everyone's supposed to be getting rich, even though it's not a sustainable model. But anyway, back to Conclave. Would you suggest people should see it?
Absolutely.
Yes. Yeah, I enjoyed it.
It's a good watch. It's a suspense thriller. Well, it's suspenseful.
It's suspenseful. I guess there is a little action. The only criticism I've seen that I kind of can, see where they're coming from is it's a little slow. But that's only if some people don't like sitting and listening. You know what I mean? You have to be very still, you have to be locked in, and you have to kind of really invest in the characters. It's not going to be Fast and the Furious. Like, it's a thinker. So if you don't really like cerebral sort of films, it might not be for you.
Yeah.
But yeah, if you're, but I think it, for people who are religious and non-religious, I think it works.
Yeah.
Because you still have, but if you're someone, because the nice priests end up being the one who is intersex, like, so you have to be okay with that concept for it to be a happy ending. Because if you think that, like, someone who's born intersex is, they need to pick one or the other, because at first that's what Cardinal Vincent was going to do. Like, he's like, well, I'm just going to double down, I'm male. But then he thought about it, he was like, no, I'm just gonna, I was born this way, and there's nothing shameful about my natural form.
Yes. Yeah. I agree with that. I don't have anything.
Cool. All righty. Well, next time we'll go back to reading the Bible, which, oof,
unfortunately,
it's kind of tough, but yeah, I think I'm gonna release this. It's almost the holidays. Which, like I said, I'm not religious, but I love Christmas. I guess it's just I don't know. I like lights. I like eating a lot of food. I don't like the unadulterated consumerism, but I do like the idea of showing affection to people either with gifts or, if it's cooking or just that spending time together or just letting people know that you care about them. Like it's nice.
I like the holidays. It's nice. I mean, it's always something very nostalgic and special about it.
Yeah. Yeah, I think the fact that it's not even that much of a religious holiday, especially since it's definitely not when Jesus was born. Like that's just something that was added later.
It's definitely a religious holiday.
Well,
I mean, Jesus is the reason for the season. Fucking.
but I mean, it's just been branded that way. Like I said, it's not really Jesus's birthday. It's most of the roots of our traditions are based in paganism. Like it was just a Roman holiday because this is the coldest time of the year. And if you have like a bunch of fun stuff, people tend to not get as depressed.
Yeah. I mean, that makes
Because
sense.
like you have all the lights and stuff because we barely have any sunlight. So like, it helps to keep your spirits up. I remember, I don't know exactly which tradition this is, but it's a Native American tribe where basically their griot, or basically the person who knows all the stories and does all the storytelling, they would only do the storytelling during the winter months as sort of a pick-me-up so that you had something to look forward to when it started getting cold. So I'm like, yeah, to me, it's interesting how societies have kind of figured this out. As societies where you have winters, because winter is terrible. So you have to have something wonderful in there so that, we don't get super sad.
Yeah, it's not my favorite time of the year. I'll tell you that.
Yeah, I much rather like it when it's warm. But yeah, I do. I have a lot of wonderful Christmas memories, and I like making more.
Yeah. Good.
Even though, real quick though, I do hate the idea of telling kids Santa Claus is real. Don't do that. You can still have fun with Santa Claus without gaslighting your kids. Don't. And they should appreciate the work you're doing to make Christmas happen instead of giving it to some magical man in the sky. Sound familiar? Mm-hmm.
Did you know our modern view of Santa came from Coca-Cola?
I did know that. And that's my whole thing. Just keep him as a mascot for Soda Pop. You know what I mean? Like I'm not saying don't get your picture. Well, actually, I kind of am. I don't teach your kids to worship a magical man and give him credit instead of, because most of the work of Christmas is done by women. It's mostly women doing the shopping and women doing the cooking and women doing the decorating. And then at the end of the day, you're just like, Santa. I used to tell my son, if you see a fat white man walking through our house, you holler. That man isn't here to help us. Like, real talk. Instead of teaching your kids, it's like, yeah, Santa sneaks in at night and he leaves presents and he has little elves and blah, blah, blah. It's like, no, these toys are being made by, people who are getting a slave wage overseas. So keep it 100. Like, yeah, no, it takes a lot of work for the Christmas magic to happen. And it's not like all magic. It's actually work. Like it's real. Life is real. And to make all this stuff happen, it takes real work. And to me, when I figured out like Santa wasn't real, I wasn't disappointed. Like the truth of the matter is my parents love me and they worked really hard and they made this happen. So
also wasn't disappointed.
Yeah. And also the concept of Santa was creepy. It's like, so this guy's just watching me all the time. Gross.
He's like Jesus.
That's what I'm saying. Like to me, Santa was obviously just such a stand-in for like biblical God, where he's just like, and it also teaches you that material, like not having material wealth means you're naughty because you're only the best. If you're nice, you get stuff.
Yeah, that's the fucked up part about it for people who
yeah. Yeah, like if you're nice, you get stuff, and if you're naughty, you don't. So it's like, but that's not true. There's lots of kids who don't get stuff on Christmas, and it doesn't mean they're bad. And I mean, it's just kind of a way of teaching. It's like, oh, poor kids, they must have been naughty. Muslim kids must be naughty. Jewish kids, naughty. Like only the good Christian children get gifts. It's like, that's not a good lesson. So that being said, your body belongs to you. Have a good Christmas and don't gaslight your children. Tell them the truth whenever you can.
And also have a good other holidays like Hanukkah and Kwanzaa and Festivus, because those are just as important as fucking Christmas.
Tell them whatever you want to. Just get together, have some good food, and try not to, buy too much into consumer culture. It's ultimately very empty.
Be curious, not judgmental. biblebreakdownpodcast@gmail.com. Peace.